Hi, welcome to another edition of the Alan Rosenberg Show. And today I thought of a new idea for a new series. I'm going to call it UK versus the US. And it's not really about a competition. What it is, as you probably know, I'm a bit of an Anglophile. I love music that is from Britain or the UK that is fairly unknown in America. And I'm not talking about unknown artists. I'm talking about huge, legendary bands, artists in the UK, Europe, that just never made it in America, at least in a big way. And I've been reading this old Mojo magazine. It's not actually that old, actually. And this is a whole history of Paul Weller. And I'm reading this thing, and it reviews his whole discography with the Jam and the Style Council and his massive solo career. His career has been going on for just about 50 years. And he's as popular today, pretty much, as he's ever been around the world. And that includes the U.S. He's really not much more than a cult artist here in the United States. And I think that's because he said he just never wanted to kowtow to what you got to do to make it in America. He wasn't going to kiss ass, basically. So let's do a video, episode 1 of UK versus the U.S., because Paul Weller, the Modfather, is a legend across the pond, and he should certainly be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame if it was an international Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Look at this discography. We're talking about the Jam, we're talking about the Style Council, and we're talking about a huge, massive solo career. So I'm going to go through it relatively quickly to give you an idea, especially you U.S. fans, of what you're missing out on, but it's never too late to catch up. Now, I remember reading Cream magazine. I had a subscription, and late 70s, I would see ads in there, and I still have them, for the Jam, their debut album, which came out in 77, called In the City, and then latter day, at the end of their next album, and even for All Mod Cons, you would see these advertisements. But of course, American radio, to this day, American radio, I have never heard the Jam on commercial American radio. In fact, I don't think I've ever heard Paul Weller. Style Council had a couple of hits, which is surprising. They did cross over to a certain extent in America for a brief period of time. So how did I get into Paul Weller? Well, I saw those ads, and then I would always read Q magazine and Mojo magazine. But then in 1996, I was at a party. A friend of mine, Tom, I'm sure you're not going to see this video, but if you ever do, Tom, I remember this. He had a party, I think, in Fire Island in New York, and he invited me and my wife out, and we went there, and he was playing great music, and he was playing what turned out to be the debut album from Paul Weller, this album right here. And this album came out in 1992. Well, anyway, I had no idea what it was, and I went to Tom and I said, "What are you playing, man? I'm loving this." And he goes, "Wow, that's the debut album from Paul Weller." I'm like, "Well, I got to get that." And then I made the connection that Paul Weller was in Jam, and I said, "That's it. I'm going to get into it." So I bought the Paul Weller album that came out in 1992. In 1996, and then I got this album, and this album is one of those albums that changed my life. And this is Snap, a 2 LP vinyl collection of the best of the Jam. And I got this in 1996. And this album is one of those albums that changed my life. When I do my ratings at the end of each year, this was my #1 most played album of 1996. Of course, it came out much earlier than that, but that's when I got it. And then I decided to go, become a huge fan of the Jam and Paul Weller. So let's go through it. So the Jam, I pretty much have most of it. I think I have pretty much everything by them. But this is one of my favorite box sets. And this is a 5 CD box set called Direction, Reaction, Creation. And this is all of the Jam albums, which is 6 studio records. I hate this kind of box set, by the way. They mush the albums together. So if I go on my database, I only have this. It doesn't look like I have all the Jam albums because they're all in here. But I don't separate it because there's more than one album on a CD. Just a quirk. But anyway, this is pretty much everything at that time by the Jam. And their first album was In the City, which came out in 77. Then You got This Is the Modern World, 77 also. All Mod Con's classic. And that was their first top 10 album in the UK. In 1978, that came in number 6. And then Setting Suns came in 79. That hit number 4. And then Sound Effects came out in 1980. That hit number 2. And then The Jam finally hit a number 1 album in UK with The Gift, their final album in 1982. Now, their last 3 albums, Setting Suns actually did chart in America, hit 137. And then the follow-up album, Sound Effects, did hit number 72. And then the last album, The Gift, which was a number 1 in the UK, went up to 82 in the US. So they never really made it in America. If you don't know who The Jam is, you need to find out. They are one of my favorites. I equate them really equal in my mind to The Clash. They're similar but different, but I think they're equally as good as The Clash. And The Clash is one of my favorite bands. The Jam is in as well. So there's a lot of other collections by The Jam. There's even a 2 CD, the Gold collection, which has a million songs. The songs are really short. I mean, this 2 CD set has like 60 songs or something like that. And there's a lot of collections from The Jam. And please do not give me a domino effect here. I do not want you to go. There's a thing called Extras. There's a 2 or 3 CD set live at the BBC. And there's Live Jam CD right there. They have not run short of milking the Jam catalog. There's even a single greatest hits that you can get. And in fact, I even have this awesome DVD, The Complete Jam on Film. This is great, amazing, actually, absolutely fantastic. So there is a ton of great stuff out there for you to investigate the Jam. I would recommend starting with like Snap or the Jam Gold or even a simple greatest hits. Check out like the Eaton Rifles. It's one of the greatest songs of all time. Really, down at the tube station at midnight. I mean, these are unbelievable songs. My son was a little tiny kid, and I was playing them, and he was running around listening to those songs, and still does. So that was the end. Paul Weller did an amazing thing, gave up on the Jam after they hit their number 1. Finally, he said there's nowhere further that he could take them, and then he formed the Style Council, a very different kind of band. I'm very light on Style Council. I just, for whatever reason, I have the Singular Adventures of the Style Council, which is a great collection, 16 of their best tracks, or their singles, I guess you would say. I like them. I actually have a bunch of their 45s. Like, here's one of them right here. And these are British import 45s. Why I have a bunch of their 45s, but not a lot of their individual albums, I don't know. This is Speak Like a Child. The first Style Council album I got in 1998, 2 years after I got into Paul Weller and the Jam, and that was this live one called Home and Abroad, which was on vinyl, and that was just okay. Not the greatest live album, but it's fine. But Paul Weller actually had really good success with the Style Council, huge. So that's what I want to show you. Like, this guy's career, at least across the pond, is extraordinary. And how he didn't, cross over. Cafe Blue came out in 1984, and that album went to number 2 in the UK. Actually hit 56 in the US. Our Favorite Shop came out in 85, hit number 1 in the UK, 123 in the US. So actually more success really with the Style Council in the US. Cost of Loving is this one. This one came out in 87, hit number 2 in the UK, 122 in the US. And Confessions of a Pop Group hit 15 in the UK, kind of an experimental, different kind of an album for them. 174 in the US, and then they had one other one called Modernism, but that wasn't released until they released their box set. So that's a different one. Then he packs up the Style Council. So you got Jam from 77 to 82. You got Style Council from 84 to 88. Packs it up. Kind of his wilderness years. He's unsigned. He's not sure what he's going to do. And now it's 1992. He releases his debut album that I talked to you Told you about Paul Weller. That peaked at number 8. His second one is, a lot of people think is his best, and I wouldn't argue that. That's this. This is Wildwood. It's a deluxe edition. And this came out in 93. It hit number 2 in the UK. Did not chart in the US. Then you got Stanley Road. Some people think this is his best album. This hit number 1 in the UK. This came out in 1995. Phenomenal album. All of these, I think, are phenomenal albums. These early ones are just amazing to me. Heavy Soul was his 4th one. That came out in 1997. Hit number 2 in the UK. I'm telling you chart positions because I want to show you what a career artist he is. You know, like, he didn't have a short career. It's 50 years on. Son of a bitch. It's 50 years on, and it's still going strong. I mean, the guy charts all the time, and that's an incredible accomplishment, right? So now we go to 1997, and he releases this album, Heliocentric, not one of my favorites. Hit number 2 in the UK. Quite successful. 2000, he releases Illumination. I really like this one. I got the deluxe edition. So his albums are released in the U.S., even in deluxe editions. These are not imports. I bought these in the U.S. This one came with a bonus DVD. I like this one a lot, actually. It's Written in the Stars. I thought should have been a smash in the U.S., but of course it wasn't. But Illumination, where did that hit? Number 1 in the UK. Where did it peak in the United States? Nowhere. He has not had a single chart album at this point in the U.S. Meanwhile, all of his solo records are like number 2, number 1, number 2, number 2. This one back up to number 1, right? Massive success. Stay there, Illumination. Then he decides he's maybe running out of steam a little bit, and he releases a cover album called Studio 150, an album just of covers. That's this one right here, and another big hit for him. Hits number 2. Another one of those albums that I don't think is essential, but a really good listen. You know, at the end of the day, yeah, it sounds really good. It really does. Let's keep going, and hopefully this doesn't collapse, right? After that one, he releases this one called As Is Now. This is another deluxe edition, not an import. I got it here in the U.S. Beautiful book, great packaging, comes with a bonus DVD. And this one hits number 4 in the UK. Where does it hit in the United States? Nowhere land. We are now up to 2004, starting in 1992. He has yet to have a charting album in the United States. 2008, he releases 22 Dreams, a very long experimental album, really interesting. I like this one a lot. 2008. Hits number 1 in the UK. Doesn't chart in the U.S. Then you get 2010, and you get Wake Up the Nation from Paul Weller. And this album hits number 2. Where's it hit in the U.S.? You got it. Nowhere. Does not have a single album yet charting in the top 200 albums on the Billboard charts until 2012. And he releases this album, which is kind of an experimental album, not one of my favorites, Sonic Kicks. And this album comes out in 2012, hits number 1 in the UK, actually hits 166 in the US. That is his only US charting album. That's where my albums, studio albums with Paul Weller, ends. I have not gotten one of his later albums, but I just, he's really, really prolific, and I just lost track, to be honest with you. And his last couple of albums, they just didn't do that much for me. But the funny thing is, at least according to this magazine, so he released Saturn's Pattern in 2015, hit 2 in the UK. Did not chart on the Billboard 200. Then you got A Kind Revolution, looks like that. And that album came out in 2017, hit number 3 in the UK. And then True Meanings, an acoustic one. I'm going to have to look for that. That sounds really good. That came out in 2018, hit number 2. And then his most recent album, no, that's wrong. There's 2 more. On Sunset, this came out in 2020. This is his album from the COVID period. Hits number 1. And then his most recent release is this one called Fat Pop Volume 1. It hasn't been a Volume 2 yet. That also hits number 1 in 2021 in the UK charts. So he's still massive. 50 years going in, he's still hitting number one, number two, number one. Massive success in the UK, worldwide, but not here in the US. Can't figure it out. And that's the point of this video. So, if you want to check out the Jam, you need to, because they're my favorite part of Paul Weller's career. They're up there, like I said, with the Clash. If you can get Snap, it's amazing. You can get the Jam Gold. That's got like 60 tracks on it. You can get the Jam's Greatest Hits. That's a short one. Just as an introduction, you need to hear them. Check out Eating Rifles down in the Tube Station at midnight. There's so many. There's even some beautiful ballads. You'll love it. Then I would check out Paul Weller. There are some greatest hits type things. This is an earlier one called Modern Classics, The Greatest Hits. This is a cool version of it. This is a 2 CD set, which comes with a live disc. Big fan of this. But this is a good introduction to Paul Weller. You want to hear like a great ballad, check out like You Do Something to Me. Brand New Start. My wife melts when she hears these songs, and my wife's not even a big music fan. There's just so much to dig into. You want to check out the Style Council? I would definitely recommend like the single adventures of the Style Council. They're more soulful, very different. Paul Weller's career is all over the place, and that's what makes him a massive, successful, legendary artist in the UK, worldwide, but not here in the US. The point of this video. So there you have it, episode 1, the UK versus the US. UK wins. No, it's not a battle. I just want people to discover Paul Weller and the Jam and even the Style Council. And how come this stuff never, ever got played? That's the mystery. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this series. I'll keep doing them. There's a lot that I could think of that I'm a huge fan of that just never crossed over to America. And maybe this will help. Let me know your thoughts. As always, stay safe, stay healthy. If you're new to my channel, by the way, hit subscribe, hit playlist, and there's tons of videos. This will be a new playlist called UK versus US, and we'll see where this goes. As always, thanks for your loyalty. Thanks for watching. Send me your comments, and I'll see you next time on the Alan Rosenberg Show.